Hello and welcome to day 3 of the Goldilocks Zone Contact Challenge. So on day 1 we talked about above the bit, on day 2 we talked about behind the bit, and today on day 3 we will be talking about correct classical contact and being on the bit. We will explain a little bit and we're going to show some footage, some nice writing footage to make up for yesterday, so that you see in different traditions good, correct, classical contact. Before I go any further though, I want to let you know that we will be opening the doors for our Contact and Connection course. If this resonates with you, if this is something you've really been enjoying, then stay tuned, because at the end of this video we're going to talk a little bit about the course. You can listen to all the details and see if this interests you. So let's talk a little bit about what correct contact is.
Yeah, so I like to approach it from the functional point of view. You have a good contact and you have your horse through the back and on the bit. If you have a good connection from the hind legs through the horse's back, your pelvis, through the rest of the spine of the horse to the skull, whether you ride with a bit or whether you ride with a bitless bridle, it's kind of the same. When the energy flows well through the spine, you can feel it in the rein. The hind leg that swings forward fills the rein a little bit, and then you feel almost like a little pulse in your finger where you hold the rein. It's like when you put your fingertips on an artery, you feel the pulse, right? And you can feel a pulse that's just that light in the reins when everything works well, when the horse is balanced and stepping into the contact. So when the hind leg touches down, you feel that very slight pulse. And from there, from your fingers, the energy gets recycled again through the reins, through your pelvis, from your pelvis to the horse's pelvis, and then through the hind leg back to the ground, and then that cycle begins. Right? So you need that pelvo connection where you have your upper arms close to your ribcage, your elbows close to your pelvis or lumbar spine, depending on how long your arms and your torso are. And the rein contact of the horse goes from your elbow to your pelvis to the horse's pelvis, and not up your arm to your shoulder. That's really important. On the one hand, you feel the hind leg in your fingers. On the other hand, when you close your fingers for a half hold, that impulse travels all the way through the horse's spine back to the hind legs and flexes the hind legs a little bit. Right? And if you don't have that sort of a connection, it could be that there are muscle blockages somewhere along the way that don't allow the energy to travel through. It could be that the pole is locked, it could be the underneck, it could be the rib cage that is held tight, or the back that is stiff, it could be the hind legs, the hip joints that are stiff. And that acts a little bit like a landslide that covers the road, and then traffic is stopped. You can't get through that mud. Right?
Or like a kink in the hose.
Exactly,
and the water doesn't go through.
Exactly. And the other option where there's no good connection from back to front and front to back is when you have a false bend. That's like a hole in the garden hose. That's an area of hypermobility, and the energy sort of exits the horse at that point. The hind legs, the pushing energy of the hind legs exits and doesn't go through the neck to the rein. It can't be recycled. Or if you give a half hold, then the horse will evade at the base of the neck. It's usually at the base of the neck somewhere. Or behind C3 if it's a longitudinal break. And then your rein, it disappears there and leaves the horse, and it never actually reaches the hind legs. Right? But as long as you have this energy connection back to front, front to back, and there is no blockage anywhere, no leaks anywhere, then your horse is most likely on the bit and through the back. And regardless of whether you have more elevation, less elevation, or whether the nose is a little bit more in front of the vertical or closer to the vertical. So there's a variety of postures in which you can say that the horse is on the bit and through the back. So even if you let the horse stretch forward downward, she should be through the back and on the bit, because you still want that energy connection, even if the horse is stretching forward downward. And between that forward downward stretch and the piaffe with the highest degree of elevation and collection, everywhere in between those, you should be able to have the horse on the bit and through the back. And it will look a little different depending on how much collection and elevation you have, and depending on the horse's conformation. So every breed will look a little different in that respect. So they won't all look the same, but the function will be the same, even though the visual impression could be a little different. So that's it in a nutshell on the bit.
So let's look at some videos now and
Yes.
see some of this in action.
Yeah, shows some videos with different breeds and different equestrian traditions, because I think it's interesting to see the common ground between the French and the German, Austrian, and Portuguese and Spanish traditions and so on. You see that good riding is good riding, regardless of whether you have a Baroque horse or a Warmblood or any other breed, or regardless of which tradition you follow.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Let's do this.
Yes.
Okay.
So here's a pas de deux with Johann Riegler and Artur Cottas from 1994, the Spanish riding school. That's of course where our roots are, in the old Spanish riding school. So we start with that, and we can just watch that a little bit. We can see how young they still are.
Riegler is on
It's
the
on
left,
and Cottas is on the right.
Is on the right. Yeah.
That's where our roots are, of course. All of our teachers go back to the Spanish riding school one way or another, directly or indirectly, and so it's just nice to see.
Of course, these are fully trained horses,
Yes.
of course, but it's super useful to see the way it should look, and you can get a feel.
Yeah, and these are chunky horses. They're not that easy to ride because they have big, massive bodies. Getting them to be really supple is not so easy. They're not spectacular movers like the modern Warmbloods, so they don't look spectacular. But what I noticed when I watched this again is that there is sort of a softness in the movements. There is sort of a swinginess in the bodies.
See, I prefer that over the spectacular,
me too.
flashy, flamboyant legs flinging movement. I like the softness and the bounce and the.
Exactly.
It's just, it feels luscious.
You see how the necks move sometimes, because we said the head and neck are a balancing device, so anytime the balance changes, the neck has to move a little bit. Or if there's any kind of glitch where there's a little tightness there, your head will go up. And there they were glaring at each other. The outside horse pinned his ear, felt like the other one was a little too close.
Which, it happens even to really advanced horses and riders. And it happens. This is real life, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
Of course, they're riding with double bridles, but if you can see, the curb is often very light. Yeah. It's not engaged all the time. Like when we watched the other riders, the curb was engaged the whole time, pulling the head down, and here the curb is just in use here and there as a fine aid.
Right.
Look how close they are.
And they're riding 3-in-1, right? They have 3 reins in the left hand and then only the right snaffle rein alone in the right hand. It's the traditional classical way of riding with a double bridle. And you can see how the movement of the hind legs and the energy flows through the spine, through the back of the horse. And they have very massive necks, so with those horses, achieving suppleness, maintaining suppleness can sometimes be a little tricky. When you have horses with long, slender necks, it's easier to maintain a certain suppleness. But then, the difficulty with a long neck, thin neck, is to create stability. So both have their advantages and disadvantages.
We could point out, because there's little mistakes, little moments of quick errors throughout here, but actually, it's a funny thing. That's what, in a way, that brings it some beauty. It's because it's really authentic. It's really real. These horses aren't in an artificial head position like a headset. It's real. It's authentic. Their head position shifts and changes in the moment depending on what they're doing and what's going on. They're very real.
And yes, like Shana says, there are little mistakes. There was the Riegler's horse didn't do the tempo changes at the beginning a couple of times, but it's okay. It's living beings, they're not machines. So.
And into the passage here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cortez's horse lowered the neck there for a little bit before the passage. Almost looked like he was resting for a second and then picking himself up again into the passage. So it was interesting because this is pretty demanding, right? All these Grand Prix movements in one after the other without having a break in between. That takes a lot of strength and a lot of stamina.
Right. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the engagement of the hind legs, how this corresponds to the...
You saw a nice uphill balance in the piaffe here. Unfortunately, you don't see the whole the legs, but you can see how he lifts there, how he lifts the withers up, and how he's lowering the croup a little bit. Yeah. So the front one, Riegler's horse, you can see that nicely how he elevates the whole shoulders, wither, neck, head, and the haunches were flexing. And, in the passage, you also have a good uphill balance. Uphill always meaning that they lift the withers up. It's not just the head that comes up, it's from the withers, starting with the withers forward, everything goes slightly up and the top line stretches forward. So there's no retracting behind the bit. But there's also no pushing up against the bit.
Codis's horse took a step with the right shoulder to the right. It's pretty funny. Yeah. It happens. What I wanted to point out was if we just go back just a tiny bit, I know we're talking about contact, but what I really like seeing is the flexion of the joints, the upper joints of the hind legs. You can really see how they're opening and closing, and the horse is sitting each step, not just throwing the body forward onto the front legs and flinging the legs. It's a very different movement than some of the movement we were watching in yesterday's video. Let's go to the next video.
Yeah, so here we have another video from the Spanish riding school. That's Klaus Krisch with Siglavi Mantua from 1993. And
the picture quality is not great, unfortunately.
I think somebody filmed it from the TV or something like that.
That's what this is.
But it's a very good performance there in front of the city hall, I think, in Vienna.
Yeah, Rathaus. Look how young he is. We know
both
him.
of them.
yeah, both of them. Yeah.
And we saw them in 2005, right? 12 years later.
Yeah.
During the solo exhibition. Yeah.
It's a great pair.
Yeah. Ugh. So it's the solo. And
stupid letters covering the horse. I was like, wow.
Yeah, so here with the solo performance, the tradition is that you drop the snaffle reins, you just ride with the curb reins in one hand, and then you hold the whip upright, which is the way the people rode in the Baroque and the Renaissance eras. And that was always the privilege of the fully trained horse and rider. That's they trained them with cabeçon and bit, and then when the horse was completely trained, then they didn't need the cabeçon reins anymore. They would ride just with the curb, and the whip was held upright, right? And so it's always a very special performance when you see that. And
the picture's a little skewed. The horse looks a little long here. I know, yeah. He's not that long.
I know.
So it's a little hard to judge then. That
video ratio.
Yeah.
But we don't need to watch the whole thing. But it was again, you see how the movement goes through the whole body. You see the suppleness in the hips and the rib cage and the neck, the pole, and the shoulders. The rider sits very quietly. You don't really see the aids. So he rides the horse really largely with his body, so he doesn't need a whole lot of leg or rein aids anymore. You see the lowering of the croup, the flexion of the hind legs, and in the piaffe especially. So here we have a short video of Anja Beran with the Warmblood mare, and Anja Beran is always nice to watch. Everything always looks very soft in her riding. The horses look very content. when she rides.
I think she's probably a very compassionate rider to the horse. Yeah.
She seems very soft and supple in her own body too.
Yes.
And you see these transitions between passage and trot. It looks like it's probably the early stages of passage training. I don't know how old the horse is there.
And so,
but it looks very, very nice.
This is something to really watch and emulate, this feeling of contact, and that she's always giving the reins forward. You never see backward action. She's not pulling and yanking. It's such a breath of fresh air after the videos that we saw yesterday. The nose is often in front of the vertical. The horse is mouthing the bit quite a bit.
It's okay though.
But this, I mean, you can see that, I mean, she's a very compassionate rider. Her hands are never harsh. So the mouthing of the bit, and the contact is very light, the mouthing of the bit isn't to do with that. So
some horses do that. They suck on the bit a little bit. They open and close the mouth ever so slightly. It's not because they're braced or because they're tense or anything. It's some horses I find that it's just, I don't know, part of their personality almost.
Yeah, sometimes they're thinking, and if I recall, I don't remember this particular horse, but a lot of the horses that she has are horses that she's rescued in some fashion or another. She often takes these horses that had bad previous training, so those horses will always carry some remnant of their previous training. So we don't know. I don't know the whole story in this, but it's just, it makes such a nice picture. Look at the back movement. The back is up. It's never sagging or down. If you look at it, if you were to take the saddle and the rider out of the picture, you take it off, you would not see a sagging back here. You would see the back quite lifted and full, plump.
And what's interesting too is that Anja Baran is sitting pretty lightly. She's making herself light so the horse can lift the back and bounce up into the passage like that. If you sit too heavily, you can easily drop the horse's back. So it's good to try to make yourself light in the saddle, and by spreading the weight out over a large area and by emphasizing the upward motion. Sometimes it's good that she posts after the passage as she lengthens the stride. I think that's a really good exercise to do for the horse.
Yeah.
So the passage gives you collection for the medium trot, and the medium trot gives you more power and impulsion for the passage. Yeah, very good. I like it. I like the way she rides that, and nice transitions in and out of the passage and into the trot. Here you can always see the lightness of the seat too. How she allows the back to lift, right? The horse fills that space under the seat.
Let's look at the next one. Okay, so let's see here. We have another one of Anja Baran.
Yeah, the Warmblood stallion.
This time she's in a double bridle, but you can still see the same soft quality of contact, nice throughness. It just makes for a very nice, soft feeling and picture.
The contact is light, the horse is able to keep his nose in front of the vertical.
And she gives him the freedom to use his head and neck as he needs to. You could see there was a little moment where he almost twisted the neck a little bit, but that was what he needed to do at that moment to balance. And you could see that because the next moment he was back to where you want him to be. And here she's working on simple changes from canter to walk to canter. And in preparation, it looks like for doing working equitation work, nice canter half pass here. Yeah. Super nice. I love the quality of the outline here, the contact, that it's just light. You just get the feeling that the horse is really on the seat. Right. And that the reins just delicately refer the horse back to the seat here and there, just a tiny touch of the rein, but the rest of the time the horse is just really hanging off of her seat. His balance is really Very nice.
Yeah.
It's very soft.
Yeah.
And very harmonious. Yeah.
It's nice. I like how she's sort of playing with the obstacles in the arena and riding around them and through them. It's kind of nice. Makes for interesting workout session for the horse. So, but and you can see how she, in that slow motion canter, how she also lightens the seat, how she accentuates the upward motion in her body and the horse's body, which creates a more uphill canter. Whereas if you emphasize the forward motion in your pelvis, then you would be potentially flattening and speeding up the canter stride. Like a lot of horses start out with too much forward-backward motion in your pelvis that you can feel, right, and not enough up and down. And then if you increase the up and down motion, you reduce the forward-backward motion, the horse's balance changes and they go more uphill.
Yeah.
And she demonstrates it really well here. Yeah, very good. Nice down transition into the inside hind. Yeah, the horse is very, very balanced, very on the A. It's very nice.
It's a nice pair to watch, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's look at the next one. Okay, so we're going to jump over to the Portuguese tradition now.
Yeah, so that's the Portuguese School of Equestrian Art at the Palace of Queluz in Lisbon. That was originally their home, and they still sometimes do video exhibitions. And here's a segment of long reining, which I really like. And you can see how the horse lifts the front end with the hind legs. Here you can see how he pushes himself up, and you see then also here, how the whole shoulder, neck, head, everything comes up, right? And it's especially nice at the long rein, because sometimes horses tend to get a little short and deep at the long rein because you can't sit on the hind legs and flex them. So
you don't have your legs and seat to help you.
Exactly.
It's long reining is actually pretty hard.
Yeah, it's nice.
Beautiful.
Does
Isn't that beautiful?
Great job. Yeah. And
the horse stays up.
Yeah, stays up and in front of the vertical there the whole time. You see a nice flexion of the hind legs here in the pirouette. They do an excellent job with the long rein. Every time I've seen them, they were really, really good.
And the quality of the contact is really impeccable. Wow. And keep in mind, this guy was walking behind the horse, and yet he kept the contact absolutely smooth. Yeah. And here we have some riding footage, which is nice to look at too.
Yeah. It's a promotional video, I think, that they did for the school or for the parks of Sintra.
Yeah.
So of course then they show some of the highlights of the exhibition program. So,
if you ever get a chance to see them in person, I highly recommend it.
I basically wanted to show the long range.
This is nice. That's Piaf. Actually, can you go back to that? Because that's super. Not just the quality of the Piaf, but the quality of. We're looking at the contact today, right? We can look at all of these things, and we do want to talk about it all.
Yeah, he's riding with the reins in one hand, by the way, right? And here, the whip is in the right, and the all four reins in the left hand.
But there, he came up. That's what I wanted to point out, that it was a moment where the horse got a little bit low, and then there was a shift of balance, and the horse came up again to where we want him to be. Super nice.
Exactly. Yeah, nice. Figure eight around the pillars. But let's look at another video.
Another video, same school, but different video, higher quality video too. This is very nice.
Yeah, it's an exhibition. This is very cool. We saw that in person in Jerez last year. It's a quadrille that's ridden exclusively in the canter, 4 horses, and they play the bolero from Ravel with it. And I like how the horses are moving uphill here. The one in front of the camera with the pink mouth, right? That was a nice uphill canter. Nice. You can see the elasticity. I think it's slightly slow motion here, the way they show it, but it gives you a chance to really see how the joints of the hind legs are moving, how they're really all flexing and extending, and how the movement goes through the body.
And so contact doesn't just have to do with, or it doesn't just affect the head and neck, right?
Exactly.
The contact is part of a holistic system.
Right.
And this is why we're pointing out all of these other things, the flexion of the joints of the hind legs, the back, the movement, the rhythm, the swing, all of these things, they play it apart. You can't separate. We talk about contact, and we're going to be working on contact, but we look at it in the context of everything else. We still work on it in the context of everything else.
Well, contact is a reflection of balance and straightness and suppleness, right? That's why you have to look at the whole horse, not just at the neck or the head or the reins, and it's always the last link in a long chain, right? The contact begins with the hind legs and then continues with the back and everything else, and so you have to look at how all the body parts work together, and also when you have a performance like that where you have to match everybody else and you have to write a set program, then sometimes things are not perfect because maybe the horse ideally would need something else than what you have to ride at the moment, right? So that sometimes plays a role. And you see sometimes a horse trying to relieve a hind leg by maybe lowering the neck a little bit or whatever, getting crooked a little bit, and then they get back into balance and then it's good again. So it's not static, right? Everything is always a little bit in motion. Like how the riders also allow the back and the hind legs to move in the piaffe. The one on the right especially was moving very nicely with the horse's back.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, the riders are very, casual and relaxed. There's nothing stiff about them. I always notice that it's always like they're born in the saddle and everything is easy to them and nothing is a big deal. You never really see them strain or work hard or so. There's always this nonchalance about the Portuguese riders. I think that's part of the philosophy or the goal. That they want to make it look as easy as possible. I guess there's a passage in there. I remembered it being all canter, but there's a passage now too. So, and piaffe. It's nice. You see how softly the horses move overall, and how all the movements go through the body. The movement doesn't stop anywhere. Right?
Yeah, that horse on the far left right now, and the one on the far right now too. Just super nice movement that just travels through the whole body of the horse. Yeah. Super, super nice. Yeah. The Portuguese school always stands out to me. In the competition, in the comparison between the different schools, when you see them side by side, I always think that the Portuguese do an especially nice job. They always look like they're the horses are especially well trained, and I like it a lot. I think they do a pretty good job.
Yeah. So it's interesting. This one almost looks like he dropped the curb reins, or maybe just the left a little. The other one had just here. This one has just the curb rein and dropped the snaffle. So it's interesting though that they're all a little different.
Nice to canter around the pillar.
Yeah. It's an old Baroque element, or Renaissance even. Newcastle used to work around a single pillar a lot, and so they still show that. It's nice how precisely they can determine, the stride length and, the positioning of the hips and shoulders, and get the sense that the horse is very much on the aids, listening to the rider here. Yeah. Nice. Very good. You see the lightness of the contact there again. And this is the final salute here. And you can see sometimes, towards the end of an exhibition that the horse is starting to get a little bit tired, like the one on the left looks like he would like to lower the neck a little bit to take some weight off of the hind legs. You see that in the Grand Prix tests and the Olympics and so on too. That towards the end of the test, they all tend to fade a little bit, because it's a lot of hard work with no break in between, right?
Okay, so our next video is Philip Carl and High Noon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here, I think it's a Trakehner stallion or something, if I remember that correctly. So it's like the horse that he had after Odin, or the famous horse he had after Odin hit others. But so it's nice. It looks like the horse is still a little bit younger here, maybe. So riding him with a snaffle, and you see the nice light contact. It's riding vigorously forward here, and letting him stretch a little, and he lifts the reins a little bit so he doesn't fall on the forehand, right? And
yeah, I really like how he encourages the horse to really reach forward and outward, and without coming, it's not like he's making the horse come above the bit. He's just encouraging constantly the horse to come through from back to front, which is funny because a lot of people think that the French riding is not that, but he is a French rider. So what's nice to see is that he just is always encouraging the horse to come up and out, open. He's trying to keep the neck long. He's never working front to back. It's all back to front. Here constantly. Here he opened the outside rein and looked to me like he was trying to encourage the horse to stretch through the outside of his body, not necessarily stretch forward, downward. Not all stretching is forward, downward. Isn't that nice? Yeah. He's just, and even when he lifts the rein, it's not to elevate the head and neck. It's almost to remind the horse that he can carry himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's super nice.
Yeah. Very active hind leg, right? So you can see how he's trying to get the horse to move his nose forward, horizontally forward, rather than forward and down like a lot of the Germans tend to do. He seems to want a more horizontal forward stretch. So yeah, very nice, very nice.
Okay, so we have an older video of Philip Carl with Odin.
Yeah, that was the horse that made him famous in a way. That was in his first books. And so he used to do these show numbers. I think he was still at the Carré Noir when he did that. So he dressed up in the period of Pluvinel, and they showed some of this Renaissance training. And so how they used to work the horse around a single pillar with somebody with a lunge whip on the ground, chambrière they call that in French. And that was always very interesting to see, very nice to see. And they used to show the in haunches in and renvers around the pillars of the walk and the trot.
So what's nice to see is the quality of the contact is just super delicious. It's just very light, and he's riding, one rein is on the cavesson and one rein is on the curved bit, like we were mentioning in one of the, I think it was in one of the Q&As.
Yeah, the old school, that's the way they trained in the Baroque era and in the Renaissance era. They used the cavesson for elevating and flexing laterally, and the curb for longitudinal flexion and also flexion of the hind legs.
Well, that is longitudinal flexion.
But longitudinal flexion of the neck and paw, but also the hind legs.
Yeah. It's connected.
Yep, it should be.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love the outline of this horse, and I always loved this pair.
Yeah. Always nice to watch. You see the nice uphill canter, right?
We have nothing to say.
No.
There is nothing to say. It's just beautiful,
Just
right?
enjoy it,
It's just enjoy it. Of course, there's lots to enjoy. You know, we want to show this to show the nice light contact, and it's a variation, writing with the one rein on the cavesson, one rein on the curb. But it's what we wanted to show is that all of these are valid, and it matters more how you do something.
Right.
That is what's the most important.
Right.
I'm not saying, you can ride well in a twisted wire snaffle. That's not at all what I'm saying. But it's not about putting crazy equipment on the horse. It's about riding well with the equipment you have. And here he's showing all the historical exercises they did in the time of Pluvinel, which is cool to see.
Yeah.
In a historical context, it's really cool.
Yeah, they used to practice basically gallop and then half pirouette and gallop again in the other direction. That was an exercise in the Renaissance era, especially. And they had these games where they would use a sword, for example, to stab a paper mache, or they would use pick up a ring with a lance.
They do that here.
That's the one. Yeah, exactly. That's what he's showing. Right? This was a pastime for a while there.
And there, stab it with your steely knife.
Exactly. So it's having fun with that. I always thought that would be a fun thing to do, to recreate these carousels. This Portuguese school actually does that still. They do that in exhibitions. That's really cool to watch.
This is something really worth pointing out. Look at how ahead of the vertical this horse is. Yet, I don't get the feeling at all like there's something disharmonious in the horse. So that's where you need to look at everything in context of everything else. The head is well in front of the vertical, but I wouldn't call it above the bit because there is nothing that is blocked. Yeah. Everything is traveling through harmoniously. If the back was dropped, I would say the horse was above the bit. But here, I just don't get the feeling like anything should be different than it is.
I mean, the horse is piaffing pretty vigorously with a lot of energy. He flexes the hind legs and lowers the croup. Of course, the more they lower the croup, the more they have to lift the forehand up. And then, he has a Baroque stallion neck, little short up here, right? Yeah. Thick neck, little short. And that means he has to have the nose more in front of the vertical. He couldn't have the nose vertical, like a Warmblood, for example.
To have this kind of balance. He could have the nose more on the vertical, but he would have to bring the head and neck down more to be able to get that. And so he would have to sacrifice the balance in order to get that. So, and in dressage, really, in the end, what is more important? It's the balance. As long as you have the balance with everything working in suppleness and in connection, which you have clearly here.
Yeah, and look how round the croup looks, how much the hind leg is flexing and how active the other hind leg is.
Yeah, the flexion of the joints of the hind legs. I love that in this horse. Watch this.
It's very uphill balance. Right?
Watch that. You can see the hip joint flexing, opening and closing, and how well he's sitting. So for those of you who don't normally get to see things like this without somebody finding the video and pointing it out to you, I hope that this is brings some new insight for you. Looked like there was a little miscommunication there. But even in the miscommunication, the two just look at always in just beautiful balance. Nice Levade. Super. And then this passage afterwards with the reins in one hand. I mean, look at the beautiful outline of the horse, the contact. It's so light. He's so on the seat and on the aids. Really beautiful.
Yeah, so that was the end already. They didn't show the whole exit, so we can stop here and look at the next video.
So, next video is the Cadmos Samur. Yeah, a very different type of horse than the last horse.
Yes, right, Selle Française, right? So it's one of the 4 traditional schools, and their quadrilles are always really nice to watch. So you see how the principles apply to the different types of horses. The Selle Française is a much sleeker horse, looks a lot more like a thoroughbred compared to the Lusitanos or the Lipizzanes that are really bulky and short-legged in comparison to the size of the torso, whereas these horses are sleeker, longer-legged, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the principles are always the same, right? So all the horses, you want balance and straightness and suppleness, and you want the energy flow from the hind legs to the skull and back, regardless of whether you're riding with a bit or with a bitless bridle. It's essentially always the same. It may look a little different, when the horses go on the bit and through the back, and depending on what type of horse you have.
You see some variations here. A couple horses are actually going a little behind the vertical, a couple of them up in front of the vertical.
Mm-hmm.
There's some variations. It's worth noting and looking at how everything works together.
Right.
Because there were moments where the horse was in a better balance, then got shorter in the neck. I see one short in the neck now that was nice a little bit ago. So it fluctuates. It fluctuates even with very good riders and well-trained horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice half passes, and they can study the different horses in their half passes.
Mm-hmm.
And, they always have a nice creative pattern too for their quadrilles. So it's nice to watch. And 2, 4, 10 horses, huh? Yeah. And Spanish riding school usually has 8 horses in the quadrille. Podhajski sometimes made it 12 horses, which is a lot. Having 12 Grand Prix horses who can do a quadrille, and here it's 10, it's a lot. But you can, just look at the variations across the different horses. That's always nice when with these quadrilles, everybody rides the same movement, and you see them side by side. Good moments, not so good moments. You have changes in balance.
Mm-hmm. But you don't see any yanking, cranking, no roll curve, which is nice. So here we have another video from the Cadmos Press.
Yeah, it's an exhibition they did somewhere where they show the whole program, right? So there's airs above the ground in hand.
Yeah.
And then here the jumping. They often include jumping in their exhibitions, right? So.
But isn't that nice? And look at the contact.
Right.
That's the
just
thing.
Just with a snaffle.
And look, it lets the horse stretch, super long.
Yeah, a lot of competitive jumpers, of course, ride with all kinds of interesting contraptions around the nose and all kinds of reins and weird stuff. And
craziness. And this
he
is
was
so
just riding,
simplified.
Exactly, just with a snaffle and no yanking, and he's got the horse pretty well on his seat.
Nice. And that's the horse stretch.
Nice to see. Right? Good jumping. And so there, the dressage rider, very elegant horse.
Yeah, very pretty.
They seem to ride really forward too. There,
they do.
Shows that it's a military school initially, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to note.
Yeah, compared to the Portuguese school or the Spanish riding school in Vienna, these ride a lot more forward, and it has much more of a military kind of feel to it. I think Saumur is still like like an officers' training school or something like that.
And of course, Philip Carl originally came from that school. Yes. So we saw that in the footage of him riding the Warmblood earlier on. You see that forward riding.
Right.
Yeah, but the quality of the contact is really sweet and soft. You don't feel like this horse is ever pushing against the hand. Is really connected and through.
Yeah, the hands look pretty relaxed.
A little crooked in the changes here, but okay.
Swinging.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But that's not what we're here to look at today.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now next up, a competition rider for a little change of palette. So this is Charlotte Dujardin with Audrey. They call her. Her name is Alive and Kicking, but I think Audrey's nicer to call her. And this was actually her second time ever at Grand Prix. We used this in our membership. Recently we went over it with our membership participants, and many people really loved this ride. There are many good things. There's a lot here that's very, very good. Notice again that the horse isn't cranked in. She's not short in the neck. She's not. She's often a little in front of the vertical, in fact.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's a very different picture from many other competition riders. Right? You see how light the contact is and how she's yielding a lot, and the horses stretching into the contact, and not much weight in the reins.
And this is super nice.
Yeah.
No curling up the horse. Yeah. You know, it's really nice and connected. Mm-hmm. There's a lot here that you can use as mental inspiration.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I always like to have a nice picture in my mind to emulate a rider that I particularly admire. I relied on that a lot over the years, having somebody that I wanted to emulate. She's always giving the reins forward, like this image that people talk about, that you want to feel like you're pushing the shopping cart forward. You always get this feeling with her here. Even when she uses the rein, immediately she gives the hand back forward again. She never gets stuck. You never have this feeling like she's just cranking the horse in and her hands are on her lap. Yeah, beautiful, nice stretch and reach.
Yeah, it's a big contrast to the local riders. Yeah, she's always nice to watch, I find. And Carl Hester too.
Yeah, there's a lot that's good here.
Yeah.
So we skipped ahead a little bit because you can watch this on your own. You can find it on YouTube, I'm sure. But again, wanted to show coming back into the trot, always giving the reins forward, allowing the horse to stretch from back to front. Very nice feeling of throughness, of you can get this feeling like the back is working with the whole horse. You never see it really sagging. You get the feeling like the horse is really working all the way through.
There was a misunderstanding there with the halt.
Yeah.
The horse thought we halted X, but...
it's only her second time doing this, the Grand Prix test. Yeah. Oops. But what I love is how much she's giving with the hands forward and every step.
Yeah. That's the end of the test, where the horses tend to get a little tired already, so that's why the quality of the piaffe and passage is often not as good as in the beginning of the test. Yeah. But the horse really tries hard.
But even here in this little thumbnail for the next video, you can see how much the energy is traveling forward. She's releasing the reins. She's not hanging on the reins like many of them do. It's just, it's a nice breath of fresh air.
You could stretch through the top line in that window here on the left, and you see that the nose is a little in front of the vertical, and Charlotte looks like she's yielding with the reins with both hands. Yeah, very good. Very nice to see.
One more. So next up we have Reining Kluge
Yeah, it's with Biotope. That was his last competition horse, and it's a Trakehner stallion, I think, from Russia, if I remember that correctly. And he would ride him. He would warm him up with a snaffle, and then put the double bridle on just for the test. And I actually saw him in '95 in Los Angeles, the Volvo World Cup. He was really nice to watch, and you can see also how soft he is with his hands and his body, how he lets the horse stretch. And
sometimes the horse comes a little tiny bit behind the vertical here. It's good to note that this happens, that this is what I don't like is when people vilify somebody for a brief moment in time. You have to take it in the whole context. If the rider rides that way, pulling, cranking the horse in all the time, you can't put a moment where the horse comes a little bit behind the vertical, like here, in the same pile, the roker riders, right? You just can't do that.
Yeah, so, and where the horse is a little behind the vertical, he's rising in the trot, and then as soon as he goes to sitting trot, brings the horse up, the whole neck comes up again, and then the horse has his head and neck in the right position again. You can see also how Klimke is sitting a little bit more on the hind legs there and asking him to flex a little more and carry more weight behind, whereas before he was sitting more lightly, and so the frame, the balance of the horse changes accordingly, right? Depending on how you sit. See there, he elevates, and then the nose comes more forward. And so
that was super nice to see. You can really see it as a result of the change of balance, that the horse is sitting more behind, so the head comes up a little bit more, and the nose comes up and out, as it should.
Yeah, exactly. You can see that he does a lot with his seat there.
That's
not so much with the hands, right? He changes the balance and the frame of the horse with his seat. You can see how he's sometimes sitting more on the seat bones and sending the horse forward. Sometimes he's more light, sometimes he sits into the horse, and then the horse changes his whole outline accordingly. You see that pelbo connection a little bit here. So it's relaxed, but there's a connection there between the seat and the elbows.
And we should point out that he wasn't a professional trainer. He was actually an attorney, right?
Yeah, he was an attorney. Yeah.
This was not his day job.
Adult amateur. So, strictly speaking. Well, but it's encouraging too that you can have a job and be a good rider at the same time, right? You can have a full-time career and still ride at a very high level.
Yeah,
I just think that's inspiring too in its own way.
Love the feeling of lightness and connection here. It's just super nice.
Yeah, nice
gives you a really nice feeling. Yeah. And he and the horse are really together.
Right.
You can tell they have a really nice partnership.
Yeah, it's a very friendly kind of riding, I find.
Is, yeah.
There's no aggression there.
No.
So nice. Very sympathetic or empathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. So then that's the warm-up at a show, right?
Yeah.
But he rides there like he's at home, just enjoying himself. And
although maybe it was like the day before or something, because he's not wearing
it's not white breeches.
Penguin suit.
Yeah, that's true. But I remember when I saw him in Los Angeles, he was like that too. He rode like he didn't care and like he just enjoyed himself. He didn't look stressed or like I have to perform or anything. He was just like he'd won everything, proven everything.
It's cute. He's checking if the hind legs are under and square.
Yeah.
See, even Klimke had to sometimes look down to see if
the hind legs are still there.
Yeah, he's checking.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. All there.
Super nice though. Super nice feeling. Just very harmonious, soft.
Yeah.
And you can see that the energy is traveling from back to front, and he's allowing it.
Right. That's true. You can see the movement flowing, through the spine, from the hind legs to the bit and back.
Yeah, he's really
riding.
riding.
You see a good connection right here.
Yeah. He's really riding the horse from back to front. as opposed to this approach where you're just cramming the head down and then pushing a horse into that. It's a very, very different feeling and creates a very different end result. Yeah, it's very nice. We could look at one more. Alrighty, so last but not least, we have Dr. Reiner Klimke with Alaric.
Yeah, that's his famous Olympic horse. Yes. And the video is from a training video that he did on, I don't know, VHS tape or whatever they had. It's from the early 80s, I think. Or maybe it's late 80s, mid 80s, something like that. I remember when it came out. So, and so it just shows a variety of movements with Alrich in a green field.
But working with lightness and ease. Just in a snaffle.
Yeah, he rode in the snaffle a lot. That's important, right? You always have to be able to ride everything in a snaffle, and you shouldn't overdo the whole double bridle riding.
See, we have the horse chomping quite a bit here.
Yeah. Lots of energy.
Yeah.
And,
similar to in the Anya Baron one where the horse was chomping a bit. Okay, one more thing I wanted to bring up is the drop noseband. At the time, these were very much in fashion. It was also called the Hanoverian noseband.
That was standard.
Yeah.
When I started riding in the 70s, that's all there was basically. And then the raised nosebands came into fashion a little later. But that was like the standard. You know, you ride the horse, train the horse with a snaffle and the drop noseband, and then you move to a double bridle. And back then, you know, a lot of people would ride with a double bridle once a week and the rest of the time in the snaffle. And it's very important that you can always ride everything in a snaffle, that you don't need the double bridle. And some people then overdid it and rode with a double bridle too often, and then the horses could not go on the bit without a double bridle anymore. They needed the heavy guns to get the head down and get the horse round, and then that completely missed the point, of course, right? And actually, when you've ridden your horse with a double bridle, the next day when you go back to the snaffle, then the horse should feel better, lighter, softer in the snaffle afterwards.
Yeah.
If he's worse, heavier, then something went wrong with a double bridle.
I just wanted to mention also about the drop noseband, because I think some people will comment on it that the horse, it seems a little tight, maybe. I mean, the horse can open the mouth, but this is not so highly esteemed anymore.
Yeah.
The dropped noseband. The flash, of course, is, really frowned upon. The dropped noseband is more and more frowned upon. And even though we still have some bridles with drop nosebands, when we use them, they're very loose. Yeah. In general, we use, very light contact on the noseband. Very, very light. I find that actually horses sometimes will push against the contact a little bit too of the noseband.
Yeah, but it's 40 years old, the video, and back then that was the standard.
It was the standard. It was considered
really
correct and classical. I just wanted to point it out that sometimes the fashions change, the sensitivities change. The things we're noticing and looking at are different than what people were noticing and looking at, than prioritizing. And I just wanted to point this out because somebody may want to address that. And I see it. Yeah. That was very, very normal at the time. Yeah. So, but what we do want to point out and look at is how nicely the energy flows through these two. The correct contact is a result of everything else working well in the horse's body.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So we got to see a bunch of footage there. Got to talk a lot about how contact and connection are really the result of everything in the body. It's not just about the reins, not just about the head or the mouth or the neck. It's really about the balance of the whole horse. It's about the hind legs, the engagement, the suppleness of the joints, the back movement, and whether the aids are traveling through it, and how the rider is transmitting all of this. Whether the rider's seat is allowing the movement and energy to come through from back to front, or whether the rider is allowing with the reins, giving or working backwards. We looked at all of that over these past 3 days.
Yeah, it's interesting, I think, to see a variety of riders and horse breeds and to study the differences. And of course, not everything's perfect. They're living, breathing beings.
That's the beauty of it. I always liked seeing the imperfect moments in the best riders and horses, because it made me feel better about my imperfect moments.
Right.
And also so that you understand there's nothing fixed. I mean, if you want something fixed, you get a sculpture like this. If you want something that's dynamic and real, that's what you get when you work with a horse, when you train a horse. So how does one go from inconsistent, unsteady contact, maybe the horse is behind the bit, behind the vertical, or maybe the horse is above the bit, inverted, maybe the rider loses the contact or the horse loses the connection in transitions or changes of direction. How does the rider bridge that gap from where they are to riding like this?
Yeah. Well, the rein contact is always the result of balance and suppleness and straightness. And so that's where you have to start, right? If your contact isn't the way you want it to be, then you have to look at the horse's balance and straightness and suppleness. And you have to look at your own seat, your own balance and suppleness and straightness, right? Because the horse can only be as balanced and straight as supple as the rider. So you work on your seat for the horse's training. You can use exercises that improve all these areas, that also improve the body awareness and the connection of the feet to the ground and to the weight.
Like gymnastic exercises.
Exactly. And then as the horse improves in these areas, you will feel the rein contact improve steadily. Every time you balance the horse a little better, the contact will be a little better. Every time you straighten the horse a little more, the rein contact will be a little bit more even, right? Every time you make the horse more supple and create more connections, patch up leaks, the contact will be more consistent and more steady, light, even, and so on, right? So you can't really work on contact by itself, right? Because it's not something between your hand and the mouth or the nose. It's your whole body and the horse's whole body. So you work on those and you work on the concepts like balance and suppleness and so on. And then as a result, the rein contact will just progressively improve from day to day, week to week, and so there is no magic button you push and then everything is good. So that's also why these devices don't work, right? You can't just strap some auxiliary rein on and then magically the contact is good. That just masks the symptoms in a sense. So you really have to work for it from the ground up, like from the feet to the spine and from back to front, from the hind legs towards the skull. That's how I always think about it. I put the feet on a line of travel, ask the horse to move forward in an appropriate steady tempo, stride length, energy level, and then ride exercises that supple the hips, the shoulders, the spine, rib cage, and so on. And then you can watch the connection improve, you can watch the rein contact improve as a result of that.
Yeah, so what is the consequence of just addressing the symptoms? Of just, for example, like if the contact is unsteady, of trying to steady the hands to get a more steady contact or taking more contact. All of these different symptoms that come up, what are the consequences of addressing the symptoms rather than going to the deep root cause?
Usually you make it worse, or you create new interesting problems that you didn't have before, that you now have to fix as well as the original one. So the fastest and most efficient, most effective way of dealing with it is always figuring out, why is my horse doing that, where is that coming from, and then try to fix the root cause, and then the symptoms will go away. Whereas if you try to just address the symptoms, you lose time, you make things worse, and like I said, you create lots of interesting new issues that you didn't have before. So that's why I always ask myself, why is that? Why is the horse doing this? Where is this coming from? And that's where I start with a correction, retraining.
The solution is often in the why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so if you like what we have been presenting over these past 3 days and you learned a lot and you would like to continue this journey of learning and exploration with us, I would love to invite you to our Contact and Connection course. We do have a whole course about this, and of course we're talking about contact and connection, but little secret, we're actually talking about everything. We're talking about the straightness, the balance, the suppleness. All of it works together. It's a network where all the parts work together. It's a holistic system, right? So we're doing it in the context of contact and connection, but really you're working on everything. But it's really geared towards riders that really want to improve the various issues and problems that can come up. The horse is behind the bit or behind the vertical. The horse curls up, or the horse inverts and comes above, or the horse is unsteady in the contact or unsteady in the energy flow. It's really, that contact is a result of the energy flow. And when that energy flow can't be consistently dependable, it's going to show up in the contact. So things like that, the kinks and false bends, the rider problems too, when the rider sits too heavy, causing the contact problems, that the back can't allow the energy to come through, or the hands are too hard or unsteady, or the rider doesn't have this pelbo connection, right, that we've talked about. All of these problems are things that we address in this course. It is a 10-module course. We have theory lessons based on biomechanics and classical principles, gymnastic exercises that help you develop the horse biomechanically. So they're very function-oriented exercises, and they're a lot of fun. We have instructional videos, demonstration videos. We have Feldenkrais lessons.
For the rider.
Yeah, for the rider, that help you address your seat, that give you balance, suppleness, proprioception, body awareness, so many things. The ability to finally control yourself so that you can achieve that independent seat and independent legs and reins. Right. Also, we have imagery lessons that help you take a concept and bring it into your body. We have many of them that help you get just the right feeling in the horse or just the right feeling in your body so that you can hold yourself. For example, an imagery lesson that a lot of people really like is the pushing of the shopping cart forward, or the trolley, as they say in some places. So that you want the feeling always with your reins that you're pushing the shopping cart forward and you're never trying to ram it back into you. And you want this feeling with the horse that you're always pushing the shopping cart forward. We have so many that are about the connection, the energy flow of the horse, and about the rider's seat, how to sit in a way that spreads your weight over the horse's back and allows the back to lift so that that energy can come through, how to establish this pelbo connection, things like that. We also have accountability exercises because we have found over the years, teaching people, that people do best when they have a way to measure themselves against themselves. So this keeps you accountable, keeps you on track. When you lose track a little bit, it helps bring you on track, and everybody works together to help each other in this. And we also offer optional hot seats. That's video coaching, where we give feedback on your video so that you can get our pointed feedback. We also do that in the Q&As and the Facebook groups. We answer your questions, we'll give you feedback, we'll help you with every issue and problem you have that's particular to you and your horse. So you're never left behind, you're never left hanging, you're never left trying to figure it out on your own. We're always there with you every step of the way. There are so many benefits that you can have by working on and improving your contact and connection. I mean, oh my gosh, the relationship with your horse will improve because your horse will trust your hands, trust your seat, trust that what you do makes sense to the horse, and that it makes the horse feel good. You will get better development of the horse's musculature. The top line will improve. You'll eliminate the atrophy of the top line muscles that can happen when you ride front to back. When you're riding back to front, those top line muscles will fill and develop properly. Because the horse is working well, you'll keep your horse sounder. If you have a horse that struggles with some soundness issues, you may find that your horse is able to stay sounder longer. Your aids will go through and have a positive effect. And so that, you know, this feeling when you give an aid and you're like, I don't know, earth to horse, you know, did that come through? Your aids will actually go through. Your half halts will go through better. Your driving aids will go through better. Everything you do will have a more positive effect on the horse. And as a result, you'll have more confidence. Your horse will have more confidence. The balance will improve. Suppleness will improve. And this conversation you have with the horse, your communication with your horse will improve. We call this a two-way dialogue. It's not just you shouting commands to your horse. We teach you to listen to the feedback from your horse and use that to improve yourself. And we show you how to do that.
Because the rein contact is the result of balance and suppleness. That's why, of course, when you work on all these things, you will see that the horse improves, not just in terms of contact, but everything else. Right? He'll be more comfortable to sit and to ride because the gaits are more elastic. He'll stay sounder longer. He'll be probably more on the aids and safer to ride, less spooky, more confidence, more fun to ride, and more enjoyable. You can ride more effortlessly when the horse is in balance because you can steer with light aids and you don't
steer
have
with
to
your seat.
You don't have to drive all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have to hold all the time.
Yeah.
But you're
your
riding,
hands and arms don't get sore anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're riding more from the middle of your body, and then reins and legs are like extensions of your pelvis. You know, that's how I often think about them. So you do the majority of your work with your pelvis and your weight and so on, and then it emanates from there to the legs and reins. So you need relatively small leg and rein aids. You know, doesn't take any strength.
And you end up with a happier horse too. So if this interests you, there is a link or a button or something below you can click and you can get full information on the course. If you have any questions, just email us. Happy to answer your questions, and we hope we see you in the course.
Yep. Hopefully see you there.
So I'd like to give a big thank you to all of you for showing up, for participating in this amazing 3-day challenge. It's been a really interesting couple of days. There's a lot of really good stuff and some not so good that we needed to bring out into the open to talk about. It's important. But the great thing is that you have control over how you want to ride your horse. You have the ultimate authority over your horse and your training, and you can choose the outcome you want.
I mean, it's all learnable, right? It's not black magic. You can learn to develop a good contact with your horse. It's all craftsmanship in a way. You just have to understand how it works, how the principles work. You need maybe a few exercises that you can do, and with our help and the help of our Feldenkrais teachers and so on, and the exercises in the course, you can drastically improve the horse's rein contact and balance and suppleness and all the other things that we mentioned. It's all doable. It's not black magic, it's not like for the chosen few, it's everybody can learn to balance the horse and make him supple and ride with a pleasant rein contact, that pleasant for both you and the horse. So it's all doable, and we're here to help if you like.
So let's do it together.
Yeah.
See you there.